Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inheritance Podcast. I'm super excited today. I have two amazing guests that I have been itching to interview for a very long time. They are incredible. We're going to jump into a topic that I've actually personally been dealing with recently, and it is going to be a really, really fun topic. We are going to talk about grieving things that are alive. And I'm super excited to share this with you. Before we get started, I just want to ask you guys to give yourself a little intro. Tell my audience, people who've never met you before, a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and then we'll kick it off. So, Bryn, I'll kick it to you.
I'm Bryn, Valencia. I am one of the founders of Aquaterra. We do water cremation, and I work with Shaken and Stirred Ministries, where we help people that are walking through big faith questions. So I kind of have I'm involved in a lot of messy spaces, we'll say that.
I love
people
that.
Navigating stuff.
And you're very safe in the messy. That's what I love about Bryn. What about you, Rebekah? Tell us a little bit about you.
I am Rebekah LaRobardiere, and I am a somatic experiencing practitioner and a sex and relationship coach. So a different type of messy, but emotionally charged and messy anyways.
Yes. I love it. I love it. And I haven't gotten to interview Rebekah before, but I've been behind the scenes when other people have interviewed Rebekah. And the stuff that she says is insane. I mean, it's so good. Both of you guys, if you guys are listening and you've never followed them, you need to go right now and go follow them. They're incredible. But we're going to jump right into the topic of grieving things that are alive. I feel like when we talk about grief, people will jump to something died. Yes. Death. Yeah. So I know personally, I went through something where that was not the case. And I don't know that I could give myself permission to even use that word, grief, because it's like, well, nothing is dead in front of me. Nothing has physically gone away. But I was experiencing in my body, at least, like I knew that it was grief, but I just was like, it doesn't make sense. So my first question is, when we hear the word grief, most people immediately think of death, but how much of human suffering actually comes from grieving things that are alive? So kind of to expand on that, like relationships, identities, dreams, versions of ourselves, even expectations that don't get met, which was something that I was dealing with. What do you guys think about grieving things that are alive? And does that happen? What does that look like?
We're saying things that are alive. I think it's still fair to say that some things are dead, right? Even if there hasn't been a formal, a human body that has passed and been put in the ground. That is just one way of talking about death. But dreams die, relationships end, right? That may not be a funeral type of death, but it's still very much something that a plan that I had that is no longer. So I'm okay saying, I talk about dead dreams all the time. I talk, relationships that are no more, just expectations. I am really comfortable saying that we experience grief or we experience tension in our bodies anytime that our expectation is not aligned with reality. And that could be anything, right? What we hoped for the world, what we imagined would be, what we put our energy and we put ourselves into. And when that doesn't line up with reality, right? There's something, when there's a disconnect there, I think that can feel like grief.
Yeah, well, I work with quite a few clients in just grief in general because marriage wasn't what they anticipated or having children wasn't, because we don't allow ourselves to actually grieve and mourn the loss of our singleness. Being single was great, and being married was great. But if we don't allow ourselves to really miss or grieve and mourn the loss of that freedom, the spontaneity, the no responsibilities for anyone else, if we don't grieve that, it comes in as baggage to our marriage. And then and you chose it, yes, and it's still a loss. It's a death of something. And then same with children. Like, you lose your sleep, you lose your freedom, you lose a clean house. Yeah. Right? And if you aren't able to...
As we're sitting in my house right
now. I'm not saying your house. I'm saying the conversation we had.
Yes.
But realizing if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to actually create that space to grieve, even though we've chosen, and it's a great choice, it doesn't mean it's not a loss. And so allowing that tension of holding it was great and so is this, and I still miss this.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is a loss of something.
And both can be true.
And both can be true. And it's not right or wrong. It just is. And so if you can embrace that, you move through life a lot easier and you're not quite as much at war with yourself as you would be otherwise.
Yes.
I saw something on Instagram. I've actually seen it multiple times, ironically, because I think you had mentioned the other day when you were on camera about how your Instagram algorithm knows things about you. And I swear it knew something about me because I was in the middle of dealing with this weird grief that wasn't something died, but I was just like, why does it feel like I've been split, in half? And I saw this post. It was just an entire carousel of like, two things can be true at once. Like you can be happy that you're growing and sad that the version of you that you're leaving behind is no longer who you are. Like things to that degree. And that's kind of what you're making me think of right now. And it's very true to be like, have that weird feeling that you experience in walking through a grief process for something that's like, maybe this is good for me that it didn't work out this way, but that doesn't deny the fact that I'm not exactly like thrilled that it has played out as such. Yeah. And same thing with, marriage. Like I've only been married 5 years, and I could say very truthfully, like marriage has not been what I thought it would be when I went into it. And I think it's very true, and I'm learning this in different elements of my life, that our expectations can be the things that can set us up for grief.
Yes.
I never realized that. Like, I don't know if anyone ever thought to tell me, like, hey, if you expect something and it doesn't measure up, that disappointment, grieving, like, oh, I thought, you would say this, or I thought you'd do this, or I thought you would show up for me in this kind of way, because maybe it's what I would do for them. Mm-hmm. That is hard. And I was curious about, what you guys think about expectations. My particular issue was expectations. And I was devastated that had the roles been reversed, it would have played out differently. Like if I had had the ability, and this goes into a whole other thing with control, like if it were me, I would have made it happen a different way. And that idea of like, I would show up for them differently than they're showing up for me. I was like heartbroken. Like I was unable to even just go about my one day without thinking about it. And so I was curious about, if you guys have any experience with this, or if you know people who have gone through this, or what it even looks like.
Never.
No.
I know.
Absolutely not.
Life's a
You're
cakewalk.
alone.
Okay, I will say I'm an Enneagram 1. I'm an Enneagram 1, which means, so I love a good plan. Expectations are like how I move through the world. It's my bread and butter. And it's not a bad thing. Like it's any success I've had in my life is because I've been able to set my mind to something and kind of like I sink my teeth into it, and I kind of don't let my plan go, right? And that got me through college. It got me through a master's program with little boys at home. It's gotten me through. My marriage has survived many ways because of that kind of grit that I like that in myself. That being said, it can make when plans need to change, when life throws me a curveball, I would say the grief factor is really heavy because I kind of get white knuckled onto how I thought it was going to be. My expectations are really strong. I feel like I've even shared with you before. I was in high school and I talked to my grandma, my Mama Jo, who's just like my hero. I
love this story.
And I'll keep it short. But I am telling her all of my life plans, and I'm expecting her to say, "Oh, Bryn, you are just good job, Bryn." And she says, "Bryn, your expectations are going to make you miserable." Oh. I was like, Okay, so I've told that story before, but it hits here because that is who I have been. That is who I am to my core, and people that know me and love me well can see that will be like good wind in your sails, but it has the potential to make you miserable if you don't know how to be resilient and to let things go that need to let things die that need to die, right? And you can hold things loosely. My oldest son, Baker, is he's 6, and we are talking to him all the time about, hey, dude, you got to go with the flow. And every time I tell him to go with the flow, I'm like, you are such a hypocrite, because I have never gone with the flow a single day in my life. So he comes by it honestly. But that's, we talk about expectations. They're the things that drive us, but it can also it really can curate grief, when we don't know how to move with it, move with life.
So with expectations, so I love to have expectations, but I also I'm a counter-type social 8 on the Enneagram.
You're an 8. Yeah.
So not a 1. So again, with my work with myself, I get disappointed with my expectations when it wasn't agreed upon. I have an expectation of how marriage was supposed to be. Sam and I never discussed that.
Yeah.
And so I'm disappointed because you didn't meet my expectation. But it was never an agreed upon expectation. And so that's how I, for me, set up expectations. If I'm going to bank something on that expectation, whoever is involved in that expectation, I will work very hard to have them be part of that expectation. So then it alleviates potential disappointment and grief, but also realizing we create these storylines and it doesn't line up with our reality. And so people have said you need to lower your expectations, and I don't know if it's a lowering of expectations. It's an allowance of, I have hopes and dreams, and I'm going to do what I can to get there. But the fun is in the journey, in the process. But I'm also a very experiential person. I don't want to, I want a guideline, and then let me do my thing.
And I bet in your work that you get a lot of people that don't even realize what expectations they have. We have those silent expectations. How do you?
Well, you're supposed to do the man's job, and I'm doing the wife's job.
How do you help people to even name I guess we just call that self-awareness. How do people get even better at even just naming what those expectations are? Because I think once we name them, we can be a lot better at managing them. But we can't heal what we can't name.
Right. Yeah.
How do you get people to name it?
So it's realizing you have these two people that just trigger each other, right? And you didn't meet my expectation. I wanted to come home, and you're happy to see me, and you're still on your computer because you work from home. Yeah. And so now I feel abandoned and rejected, and I feel guilt and shame because I wasn't busy enough. Right. Yeah. And so there's these dynamics that we never took the conversation here. Right? And so the disappointment is from the original wounds that we don't even know how to articulate because no one modeled how to talk about it, how to say, oh, this is what's actually going on. Right? I just think that you're rejecting me all the time. It's I'm asking for a cookie out of the cookie jar and you always tell me no, but if I keep asking, eventually I'll get something. Yeah. Right? And that's where the disappointment comes in. But I think with an expectation or disappointment or even grief, it is self-awareness. For me, I'm trying to decide. I used to have very high expectations, and but I think my expectations came from a defensiveness, not I need to accomplish something. And so for me to let go of expectations and live, I'm a lot less defensive, right? Because I have a lot less of an agenda. Mm-hmm. My goal is I get to show up as me and you get to show up as you, and I might be very messy. Yeah. And then we'll clean it up.
That's okay, we'll clean it up.
And then I have a great time and you're like, well, I'm devastated. And I'm like, oh dear.
Whoopsie.
Okay.
That's great. In my family, the phrase, I might have even got this from you, but the story I'm telling myself is the story I'm telling myself. If you can bring that phrase into regular rotation, get really comfortable with that phrase kind of is spotlighting expectation.
The story I'm telling myself is that you're avoiding me.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, the story I'm telling myself is you're not happy to see me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wait, as a way to communicate to the other person?
Yeah.
That is so effective.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
As somebody who is a somatic coach, if somebody doesn't know that, okay, so for instance, when I was going through my issue, I had no clue that it was grief and disappointment manifesting as grief. Okay, so if somebody is in the middle of that, like the expectation wasn't met and there was kind of like a domino effect of like this relationship as a whole, not just this one situation, but it has played out as like this entire interaction has not lived up to that expectation. I experienced grief, but in the moment I did not know that it was grief. I couldn't name it. Like, what happens in the body that maybe you could kind of illuminate for whoever's listening or watching to help name that it's grief? Like, how does somebody know that it is grief?
That's a great question. So I would put it back to you and be like, in that conversation, in that initial moment, what did your body feel? Like, did you feel a sensation, a color, a heat, a cold, tingles?
I felt, so I'm thinking back to like, I think the trigger moment, you know? Typically this is what happens, like the more that I experience this, the more that I know what it is now, but I kind of feel like a wash of heat and then it's like cold that follows it. To where you just feel drained. Like in that moment, it drained me. And then followed by it, it's more, I was very confused in that moment, like, whoa, you know, because the sensation is kind of shocking in that moment. Yeah. Like, what is happening with me? Yep. What am I feeling? And something I've noticed is that your body knows what's going on before it hits your brain. And so then my brain's trying to catch up and try and figure out what is going on. And I had no clue as to like, why am I so upset? I could not name it, but I knew that my heart was shattered and it was broken and I was devastated. And I had an idea for like, obviously that particular conversation when I got off the phone didn't go the way that I thought, but I'm not normally the type of person that's going to be leveled out by one bad conversation. It's going to be something that's like a culmination of events to where after a while it's like hard to deny the pattern. And I think in that moment, it was that domino effect of like, this is not just a one time, this is, I'm looking at it. And it slowly just started kind of coming out of me. And I'm an outward processor. So sometimes I need to just say like, well, I'm feeling this and I don't know why. And at the end, I will arrive at that point. But I know very many people who are not like that. Like they'll just have things wash through them and then they're like, that was weird. And then they just move on and have no clue how to name things and address it. And they typically don't sit with it long enough to realize like, oh, my body just had a feeling, something shifted in me, and then I wanted to cry, but then I'm uncomfortable with that. And so they kind of like will move past moments of like big disappointments. Yeah. And it'll just, in their brain, they're pushing it down and not dealing with it. But after a while, it has to come out.
Oh, it'll show up one way or another.
It doesn't just stay
There is
flat.
nothing that you can brush under the rug and it stays there.
Yeah.
But allowing yourself that time and space, because that's what healing takes. Like once you have an impact, whatever it may be, it's time and space that's actually going to help it process and move through your nervous system. Yes, you'll still think back and be like, yeah, that was very disappointing, but you didn't shove it down and you let it go. And then you let the tears come. And then you could always ask yourself, tears, what are you trying to tell me? Like, if your tears could speak, what would they tell you? Right? And it's being familiar enough. Like, a lot of times you hear people like, oh, listen to your body. I can listen to Spanish all day long, still can't tell you what they're saying. Right? If I am not taught the language of my body,
Exactly.
I am not going to know how to listen. Like,
And if I can go even a step further, I think for women, and specifically women that grew up in certain faith traditions, we are, I would say, explicitly taught not to trust our bodies. How many times did I hear growing up that your feelings are like dangerous or unimportant? Whatever.
They're an inconvenience.
An inconvenience, yes. But it was pretty late in life that I started getting permission to, that feeling, I can actually listen to that. That matters. That's a good clue. It's insight to what's going on. You know, even just last week, I was doing a big presentation I'd have people asking, are you nervous? How are you feeling? And I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm not nervous. I was not lying. I believed that I was not nervous.
Yeah.
And then the day of, I started trying to pay attention to what's going on in here. And I had a almost embarrassing moment where I kind of just like I kind of started crying over a very small moment. I realized, oh my gosh, you are carrying so much more stress than you're even giving. Your
so
brain
anxious.
is not even giving language to what your body is carrying right now. And I had anxiety, and I just had, there was a lot in there that I was not giving space to name.
Yeah,
That's
like
what
we were conditioned to believe we had to separate brain and body.
Yes.
And so we live in the logic, we live in our head, and so we continue to disregard what's going on, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, unless it's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And palatable for everybody else, but not too happy. Right?
Yeah.
I can't be too happy because then it's going to make others uncomfortable, but I can't be sad, right? And so we live in this narrow world, which no wonder we get told that we're controlling or too sensitive or too something because we have to live here. And of course we're going to be defensive because we have no access to anything and we have to protect ourselves.
Yeah. Just a little nerdy Bible thing is that New Testament is formed heavily by Greek thought, right? And Greek teachers and authors. There's Greek culture is all over the New Testament. And it was a really strong vibe in first century Greek thought that the brain and the body are disconnected, right? And we are trying to get out of our body and into the brain. And that's the way to be closer to God. So even, especially for Christians that are formed heavily by the New Testament, it's worth just naming that that's in there. That's in the soup. And it doesn't even mean I'm not even saying it's good or bad, but that's a part of the soup that we've been sipping on, right? And as people that have studied or sat under the teaching of the New Testament is that we got to get out of our bodies and into our brain. And even just naming that, I think, is nerdy, but helpful.
It is helpful. Yeah. Because it's recognizing what we've been taught and why. Like, it was a whole culture that is now being brought to us that probably doesn't resonate. And that's why we feel so disconnected from ourselves, because it doesn't work.
Why do you think human beings hold on so tightly to familiar pain, even when something is hurting us? Why can letting go still feel devastating to the body and nervous system? So kind of going back to my personal experience, I don't think I wanted to, how do I find the words to this? I think I didn't want to name it as grief, that I was grieving this relationship being not what I thought it would be, because if I did that, then I would have to let go. So like there would be an element of like accepting that it wasn't what I thought it would be and letting the expectation of what if the roles were reversed, if it was in my control, it would be different. If I just try harder, it'll still work out. If I can just hold on to it, even though it's hurting me, even though it is causing a lot of pain, to have that rejection that you were talking about earlier. And I actually, like, for the first couple weeks, I didn't even realize that it was that rejection that was the trigger, until I met with my counselor, and she was like, "So this is, you're not feeling fully accepted."
Yeah.
Right. That's all right. Yeah. So that rejection, I think I just was like, no, I can fight through it and win their affection. But that's not how healthy relationships work. And I think I had to say, I deserve better, so I have to let this go. But when I was on the precipice of being ready to do that, that was painful. So out of curiosity, sorry to make a super long question already, much longer. What do you guys think about, like, why does that happen? Why people are they ride that line until maybe they just go back into the painful relationship? They don't want to let go, or maybe they do and it's still painful. Why in the middle? Why do we do that?
Oh, because our nervous system likes familiar. And even if it is painful, I know what to expect. And that's part of a control thing. Like, hey, this unsafe, this potential unfamiliar that could be really great for me, I don't know how to predict or control it. I know if I do this, then you'll do this, and then we get in the same fight, and I know how to do this and dance.
So we're
right?
magnetized
So
even to harmful behaviors,
harmful.
even because they're familiar.
Yes.
Okay.
And
that's
Yeah.
rude, Rebekah.
I know.
That feels
I
like
know.
you're attacking
Oh, but wait,
me.
hold on a second. It's going to get worse, guys.
Okay.
Hang on,
No.
hang on.
We're doing great.
So,
No, where's the drink? Drinks everything.
I already finished mine. So.
Here.
Okay.
We are drawn to people that have a familiar tendency or feel to childhood important people in our lives. Okay?
Like parents.
Like parents.
Okay.
So we choose someone that has similarities to our parents because deep down inside, we know that this person potentially could help restore that disconnect that was caused as a child.
Oh my
right?
God.
And so, of course, we trigger our spouses, and we are most triggered by them because they have, even though we're like, they're nothing like my parents, or they're just like them, but they're this.
They're better.
They have those familiar body feels that we were drawn to before we ever knew it, right?
I don't like this conversation anymore, Rebekah.
That's okay.
Unsubscribe.
Turn it off.
So that's why.
Okay.
That's why we're drawn to it, because something in our body needs to, and what doesn't complete actually will continue to repeat.
Wait, say it again. I need to process.
So what doesn't complete. So like if you have a wound and there's not resolve and it wasn't healed and there wasn't a reconnection, you're going to repeat this same thing until your nervous system is able to complete it. Okay, so what
And
doesn't
can that
complete?
be generational too?
Yes, epigenetics, all the
Okay.
things.
Okay.
So the whole point of me doing what I do is so that I can heal for me, for past generations, and for future. Because what doesn't complete will repeat.
Okay. Oh.
So okay,
So
very
our bodies
simple.
are trying to complete the story, complete the cycle.
We have
Okay.
everything we need in our nervous system and in our body to actually heal itself. We just haven't given it access or time and space to heal it, or the language.
Okay.
So like very simple, very silly one, but if you ever stub your toe and you continue to stub it, the reason we keep stubbing it is because we just keep going, we push through. Stub it and I keep walking, I don't let myself feel and just sit down and cry. Right? Okay. So next time you stub your toe, I want you to actually give yourself time and space to feel it and be a little sad and pissed and whatever, and see if you'd stub it again anytime soon.
Okay, and I'm still very much in my mom world.
Let's go into your mom world.
Right, but I'm thinking about even how I let my boys process what they need to process.
Yep.
It's very inconvenient.
So inconvenient.
When they are needing to deal with something, especially when we're in the middle of, I don't go to grocery stores, but I do Instacart now. But when we're when we're out in public and we're needing to get through something and they need to process, so there's actually some real reason to let them complete
that cycle.
that cycle.
And so let's say you're in the middle of not grocery store and you're like, oh, this isn't going to benefit any of us because I am now real triggered and it's going to bring up other things. Just getting down and saying, hey, you've got big feelings. I really want to hear them. Let's do it in the car.
Yeah.
Let's get home and we can do it.
Yeah.
Like we have cry time. Not as much anymore.
Oh, that's good.
But we would set an alarm.
Yeah.
And you have cry time. You can wail, you can cry. Just feel all your feels. And then when the timer's up, life has to continue. But
Okay,
it's
that's
creating
good.
time and space.
Okay, and if they can learn to trust that they will have that time and space later, like there may be a learning curve there of like,
there's going to be a complete learning curve because up until now, at least for me, when I started doing my work, I was like, I can't let it out because it's going to erupt like a volcano.
Yeah.
And I have who knows what happens then. Yeah. Right? It's going to be scary for everyone. So I'm going to just maintain my control and I'm going to be wound like a top. Not pleasant, but at least I know what to expect. Right.
Yeah.
And then realizing once I started and my body started trusting me that I'd give it access to what I'm feeling and let it have a seat at the table, like life got so much better. And it's like, I'm going to talk, like all of this is like, it's like our cycle. Okay. And everyone's like, oh yeah, it's that time of month. But in reality, it doesn't need to. It's just, we don't have the grace and we let everything roll off our backs, but it got stored in these first 2 phases of our cycle. But if you start being like, ouch, that kind of hurt. I didn't really like when you said that, right? Don't let it roll off, because that's why we blow up. The world's going to hell in a handbasket because I spent all 2 weeks
Storing it
not
up.
letting myself have access to the impacts that come at me, because I'm not allowed, and I'm trying to be accommodating and make your life more simple.
But we are allowed in that
But
week.
we're allowed
And then
in that week.
it's...
But then, we're too much, whatever. Yeah. But, oh, well, that's a woman thing. And in reality, no, we don't have to. And so once I started doing that, like, see, more often than not, can't tell when the world's going to hell in a handbasket anymore. Like, I don't have the big spikes and plummets anymore.
Oh, my gosh.
Because I was like, hey, that really hurt my feelings. Or, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, inconvenience people.
And this goes back to what you were saying about at least in my experience, because I grew up in the church, it goes back to what you were saying about women specifically having the permission to, like, giving ourselves that permission to acknowledge it in the moment, because I know, being the eldest daughter, that was not always something that I was allowed to do. And so I, out of trying to not inconvenience people with my emotions, even if they were really small in the moment, I would stuff them until there was the big blow up. And then it was always like, then it became the dramatic sister, the dramatic daughter, because I was trying so hard to tiptoe around people, even though I was trying to accommodate everybody, even though I also had feelings about what they would say or what they would do. And then there was this unspoken expectation of me as a daughter to step up as like mom number 2 with my siblings. And so you needed to be a certain level of maturity in order to handle that. So everybody else got to have their big emotions, but I had to keep it together for them. And then I brought that into my marriage. And you're so right. Like, when your hormones are going crazy during that time, it's like, like it's coming out. I have to have my time to let it out. But it goes back to that weird thing about women where it's like, if you do, you're too much. Yeah. Like, there's that saying, Taylor Swift has said, like, men can react, women can only overreact. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard that. Yeah. But when I heard that, a part of me was like, this is all that I've ever heard growing up. Yeah. Like, but in that moment, it's so true. If I give myself permission to just say, I didn't like that. Can you not? The emotion goes from being like what would be a big volcano explosion and eruption to one 30-second conversation and like it's done. Yeah. It was nothing.
I feel like I'm hearing like there's an invitation to manage like a release valve a little bit. I think the framework I had growing up, and I'm trying to give language to this right now, is I'm thinking of the Book of Mormon, the musical, where it's turn it off like a light switch. There's that whole song. You just watched Book of Mormon.
I haven't seen it.
It's great. It's great.
But now I'm gonna.
There's a whole song about, and so, I mean, it's the musical is about Mormonism, but I think it is representative of a lot of religious culture, right? But the idea of just turn it off, turn those feelings off. And it's very black and white. And I can relate to that, of just turn it off. But as you're mentioning, then we can't, I mean, I'm not that good. I'm good at turning it off for a time, but it will build up. And I like even going back to what you're saying about with kids, about saying you'll have some time later. Because in reality, being realistic, I can't. I'm a professional. I have a job. I can't just lose it whenever I have those big feelings. I can't. I would not be a good version of myself if I just gave myself over to the feelings as they always show up.
Our feelings don't control us. We get to control them, but we have access.
Yes, but even just being able, that tool I'm taking away of being able to tell myself, take a deep breath right now. Right now is not the moment to feel all of that, right? Maybe I just give some language to it. Maybe I name something, and knowing maybe later this evening, I need to let that pass all the way through me. And when I'm in a safe space, I'm talking to my husband, fill in the blank. Just the same way that you can tell your kid right now in the grocery store is not it, but later on at home,
we can.
We will. You can trust that there will be time to process this.
It's the guarantee of the follow-up. It's the follow-through.
Yeah.
And it's the respecting of like, I see you and let's finish.
Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I become the person that has emotional meltdowns.
No.
It's actually quite the opposite.
A lot less, because your nervous system knows that you will give it access.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to tantrum. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be super inconvenient because it believes it's the only time it will get seen or heard.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good.
That reminds me of the last time that we spoke where you said like grief needs to be witnessed. And a lot of the emotions, we're talking about in terms of grief, like it does need to be witnessed, but it's almost like these types of emotions will demand it at some point. Yeah. Like if you don't acknowledge it after a while, there's going to come a time where like, inconvenient or not, sorry. And honestly, that's kind of where I felt like I was at in that moment. I remember I called a very close friend of mine and I monopolized her entire night. I was on FaceTime with her for 4 hours. Yeah. Like after I realized, what was going on. I mean, but it was like, I had no clue that this was stored up in me, but I had 4 hours worth of processing that was coming out. And it's like, sorry if this is inconvenient.
Yeah.
I have to get it out. Like it's stuck. And her being there for me in that time, it was so cute. She's so soft and tender. Like the second I start crying, she's like empathetic crier. She's like, why are we crying? Yeah. She's crying too. Yeah. And so it did feel like in that moment that she witnessed that and validated it, even though she had no context of what was going on, which thank God for that. But it was in that moment where I knew I cannot process this without someone listening to me. Yeah. And seeing it. Like, I think there's some elements of that process where I was good enough to go into my quiet place. I didn't set a timer, but I did have my cry time. Mm-hmm. And then there were other parts where I needed somebody else to hear it. And so I think that would be my follow-up question for you guys is like, what are your thoughts about in terms of, expectations, dreams, relationships, whatever, grieving things that are alive? At what point does somebody else or do you realize we need to bring in, you need to have somebody that you talk to?
So with somatic, one of the phrases is time, space, and an empathetic witness.
Wow.
So it is we can process on our own, but more often than not, disconnects, wounds, grief is because there's a human involved. Right? Mm-hmm. And we need humans because we are designed for connection and community. And so to have an empathetic witness, not trying to fix us, but to have that I'm seen, I'm valued, I'm heard, makes a world of difference. Yeah. And if you don't have that human, I'll have people talk to themselves in a mirror. So their nervous system believes it's actually talking to somebody.
Have you seen breakthrough with that?
Oh yeah. Or Marco Polo yourself. Because we need to know that someone can hold space. They're not trying to fix us, but someone can hold the space of what we're bringing to the table we've been so diminished in our feelings, and especially grief. No one wants to address it. People don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. And I can't control you if you're grieving. Yeah. I can't tell you how to feel.
Wow.
Right? And so we do need an empathetic witness. No matter how big or small, having someone acknowledge with you is a big deal.
Wow.
That's where I stand on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything to add to that. I love that. But it's whatever you need. I mean, there's no prescription here. There's no, if you had your quiet time and you're and you trust since I need something else, try a ritual. Yeah. Try, whatever it is. I had a friend that, her marriage ended and she's coming up on a big anniversary, and she wrote some words on rocks and threw the stones into the lake, and that was something that was healing for her. Just, rituals, little things that can help us. Talking, calling a therapist. I'm a big fan. A big fan of therapy.
Write it and burn it.
Write it and burn it. There's 100 different things. But I think to try to avoid being prescriptive or even with ourselves. Well, this worked for me last time, so that must no.
Oh, that's
even different versions of yourself need something different.
That's really good, Bryn.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I agree.
Follow up on that. What would you say to somebody who knows they probably should talk to somebody and they're feeling that, like, I need to talk to somebody, but eldest daughters.
Right.
They might say to themselves, like, I don't want to bother somebody with my stuff. I don't want to burden them. They're too busy, or it might take too much time. Like for me, I was looking at my friend like, sorry that we're on the phone for 4 hours, apologizing ahead of time when I called her, and then apologized after the fact. She was more than happy to do it, but I still do it. I'm very aware of like how much of me.
How much space we're taking.
Yeah.
We can never take up too much space, right? We know exactly how much space we're allotted, especially as women, and we're not allowed to take up any more than that. I know we've had conversations about actual practices. Rebekah said, Bryn, literally put your arms out, like get big, get comfortable taking up space. And not every friendship, not every relationship can hold that, right? That's just real. That's just, I've lived long enough to know that, right? But that doesn't mean that you don't
try.
And figure out what you need and ask her what you need. You just never know,
And it's find the few friends that are willing for you to take up space.
Yeah.
Right? You don't just do it with all of them. Okay, I've decided to start taking up space. Here I come, world.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's going to be very jarring for your nervous system, jarring for your friends. You're upsetting the apple cart for all of you because you don't know how to respond to it. And so it's finding that, like, one friend, I'm going to take up space.
Yeah.
And are you okay with it? And then notice how it feels.
Yeah.
Right? And some do great, and others, they have lots of thoughts and opinions because you've changed their expectation. And now they're grieving the loss of the old you.
Yeah. Ooh.
That's a double-edged sword there.
And another just note on that is reciprocity in friendships, right? If you called your friend and she held space for you for 4 hours, and then she called you next week and you were just like really busy, and like you weren't able to, like that's just a real, I'm not saying fair, unfair, whatever. That's just real. And that is part of why I'm a big fan of therapy, is because sometimes we need, like, our margins are thin, and I need someone to hold space for me that I can't necessarily return to them, right? And that is one of the biggest gifts of therapy, is that it's not a reciprocal relationship, right? Where I can go and I can take up space without keeping that ledger in the back of my mind. I mean, it's real. I'm just being real.
Exactly.
If I need something and I know that I can't always return this, that is a gift of therapy. It's a non-reciprocal relationship.
It is, absolutely, 100%.
She's like,
I love my therapist.
Well, and I guess money is reciprocation. And there's a financial
pay them to take up space.
We recognize the cost that we would have on others, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like I have this friend. They don't live here locally anymore, but she demanded a lot as a friend, but she knew it. And so she recognized it, and so she would compensate in the best way. She would come over because she needs to talk, and so she'd bring all the food for me to cook for dinner. She's like, what do you want for dinner? I'll bring the ingredients. Wow. And I love that because I'd rather cook. And so you sit on the counter, I'll cook for us. You provided all the food and some wine, and I've got all the time. Like, she knew the weightiness of what she was asking.
Wow.
And so it was like,
it's very self-aware. I like that.
I was about to say, that's not common, I would think. But that's a nugget. Amazing. I know.
Because even for someone that has a hard time, where I feel apologetic for taking up space in my friendships, and just even, but I don't think that I have to do that, but that might even if that gets me closer to saying yes and to showing up and to sharing myself, then I like that. That resonates with me.
I like that too.
Okay, so another question for you guys. One of the hardest things to grieve is potential. And the amount of times I've talked to my listeners about all my ex relationships, that was pretty much what I was dating, was just a load of potential. Just as one example. So some potentials for people is going to be the future that they imagined, the relationship they would hope would change, whether that's a parent or a spouse or friends, the life that they just thought they would have. So for you guys, why is grieving unmet hope sometimes harder than grieving what actually happened?
I mean, this kind of goes back to where we've talked about expectations, but it's so real that the picture that we have for our life, when that doesn't happen, when there isn't like a formal, like a funeral, like a moment where the death, like where it is for me, the thing that I think of is never having a daughter. I have 3 wonderful boys, and I just always imagined I was gonna have girls. I remember when we did our first gender reveal and I found out I was having a boy, I was sure I was gonna have a girl, and I had to go in the other room for a minute and have a moment, because not that I wasn't sorry to my sons if they ever
listen to this.
But I really thought, I just had this picture. I had this assumption that I would be a girl mom. And then in here, joke's on me, I'm a boy mom, and we're all done. Like I'm a boy mom. And even just grieving that idea, that I'll never see my husband walk his daughter down the aisle. And I know, and even that still has some, like the day that we decided that we were done, right? And we were like not going to pursue another pregnancy. That even was more clarity than a lot of times we get in these moments. And I think it's so in that moment when we made that decision, I gave myself the gift of owning that reality and saying, now, I never did any rituals around it. But it's something that I have named as something that I grieve, that a part of my life an experience that I will never get to have in this life. And there's grief in that. I think even more complicated are the things in our life that we don't even get that moment, that decision, that choice, or that really clear moment where it just seems to kind of like still float out in the ether. Relationship that you don't know if you'll ever talk to that friend again.
It's like undetermined.
As strange. And it doesn't feel, it just feels too final to say that relationship is dead. Right. That feels like what's the point? Is it helpful to put a final nail in that coffin and let it be done and say, I'm accepting that you'll never talk to that person again? Or is there something, about it? You just don't know. It's when you're in those relationships and you're in that unknown, that can be really complicated and layered to know how to grieve when you don't have the finality attached to it. It can actually make it more complicated. To grieve.
You actually really helped me. You told me about how life is kind of like how we're all floating down a river, and sometimes we go away and we come back together, and just allowing myself to acknowledge that it is okay to say that the relationship is not what I thought that it would be, and that can be kind of like my final nail in the coffin per se, because in all actuality, and kind of what I had spoken to you about privately, was that was the thing that I was most upset about, was that it wasn't, and probably never would be, manifested in the way that I thought that it would. Because had I had the ability to change any of the factors that led to the relationship playing out the way that it did, it wouldn't have been that. But it's outside of my control, because we can't control other people. And that, I think, was the hardest thing. And when you said, I remember it was almost like I saw it in my mind, where you're like, just imagine yourself, floating on a river, we're on inner tubes, and somebody's going to be on rapids, they're going to go further down, and we're going to get further down and then we'll come back together, but we're all going the same direction. Like we're all living life and we're all growing older. I think that gave me enough grace to not close the door on the relationship entirely because it was so undetermined about, how is this going to work? That gave me enough of a final, I think. I don't know if everybody else is going to, depending on their situation, have that ability to at least have some closure. I think that's a lot of what people crave in that.
And I think a big distinction is that what we're letting die is the expectation, not the person or the relationship, right? As long as that's what I like about the floating down the river metaphor, is that it allows space for maybe right now we're not floating together. But it doesn't mean that we're not floating, that we won't float back and, our currents won't rejoin or whatever down the road. I know that for some people, wisdom looks like they need they need that clarifying moment for themselves of this relationship is over. Maybe it was a toxic romantic relationship and you need to accept that is over and I'm not speaking to that person anymore, whether that means unfollowing on social media, whatever all those big final moments are. Maybe that can be really helpful and healing in some kinds of relationship. There's discernment there. But I think a lot of times it's, at least for me, it doesn't have to be that final. What is final is letting the expectation die. The expectation I had of what kind of parent you would be, or the expectation of what kind of sibling you would be, or the kind of expectation I had of what a best friend might show up as, or what the marriage might look like. You let that expectation die, and that leaves a lot of breathing room for the relationship to be what it actually is. It gives a lot more grace. Yeah. So the expectation is what's dying and what you have to grieve, and not to confuse that too much with the relationship that has to die. It gives it room to take on a different form.
So I would say my question for you is, in this whole potential thing, obviously there's going to be grief and it's not what I thought it was. There's always at least for me, I'll speak for myself. I, in these situations, crave closure, at least to feel like I can get over the hump. But I struggle to even say this because I'm not sure if it's true. So I've had many relationships where it was I was with them for potential. That's why I broke up with my boyfriends. I had an expectation and I saw you could be better, so let's get together. And then they never did. And it's okay, well, thanks for nothing, wasting my time or whatever. But closure for potential feels like those two things don't happen, because it's that never, it was just an idea in my brain. Mm-hmm. So, but I experience it in my nervous system, the grief. I experience the disappointment and the sadness and the reality, those two things not working. What would you say in your experience, do people crave, even in those situations, closure? What does that look like for people to walk through the process of grief?
There would be a lot more questions for that, because if you're continuing to find people with potential, I would look at you, because it has very little, if anything, to do with them. Yeah. Because whether we want a project or we want someone to believe the best of themselves when we don't have access to that in ourselves, and so we're projecting onto somebody else. And so you're not going to get closure. And this is me just spitballing. Yeah. You're not going to get closure with them until you actually get closure with yourself. That, this is...
What does that look like? What is closure for myself? For my personal example.
So it would recognize I am choosing people. I'm repeating something that hasn't been completed. Yeah. Right? What in me is contributing to this dynamic? Right? We vilify, we do all these things with other people, and in reality, they're human and we're human, and we want to control. We want something to be beautiful that creates safety for us, but in that, it doesn't create a unit of safety. Yeah. Right? And so once we can embrace that and recognize, I'm in self-preservation mode. I survived, I'm here, so my nervous system is crushing it, yet my survival skills are not serving me, right? They're not serving me well anymore. Yeah. So what in me is that potential that I see in others? that I'm not living up to my potential.
Wow. That's really good. And then you think being able to name that and walking, feel it, process it.
Feeling that, right?
Yeah, because I think for me, I the whole X thing, I use those as examples in previous podcasts, which thank God for therapy, because I realized what that was about. In this particular example that's more fresh, I think I had mentioned like there was this element of rejection that just kept getting triggered, and I would push through it. And I never had closure in this relationship in the traditional sense. I never even addressed the issue. What I guess helped me, what was the complete, instead, so it doesn't repeat, what helped me complete this pattern in my life, because it was echoing and other things, was that when people would reject me, I would try to take the reins back and control it, manipulate it, so then I could win their affection. It was always this performance. I'm an Enneagram 3. It's always about doing, achieving, so I could get the affirmation from people, and realizing that when they reject me, I would become hyper productive and do it even more, chase them more, only to create more disappointment. Right. So just like a vicious cycle of rejection. That was the only closure I got, was when I finally realized I am chasing the approval of people, hoping that they will give me the affection that I'm not giving myself.
Yeah. I was going to say, because every time you go after them, you reject you.
Yeah.
And so you're perpetuating, that's the word, your own rejection.
Yeah. That's really good. And I was so down in the dumps, you were there. She picked me up like, I'm such a wreck. No, and that's so true. And I don't think I had ever had anybody tell me that. Like, tell me that I was perpetuating the cycle that was causing all of this pain. I was associating it with other people, and I couldn't give them permission to just live as they already are, as they will be, because I wasn't fully accepting myself. And so I needed them to accept me so then it could heal that wound. But until I realized, like, only I can do that and show up for myself in that way, did I actually close that wound. Like, and it's so weird. And I asked this question of like, what do we do with potential? But it really is nothing. There's anything out there.
It's wildly empowering, but it's also the last place that we want to look. It's always, it's just so much easier for the problem to be out there.
Yeah. We outsource.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if I'm feeling lonely, it must be my husband's fault.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to outsource that.
Yeah.
Because then I'm going to have to look at me. And that's not fun.
Right.
So where are we outsourcing our agency and what we need?
I never would have thought that this appealed to grief.
I know, grief and agency. That's
God,
that's
that
big.
is so good.
So what do you guys think about this? How does culture teach people to bypass grief? Do you think we've normalized distraction, productivity, self-improvement, or constant stimulation as ways to avoid feeling loss?
Yes.
Correct. All these.
I just led a group of women through Lent. We had a Lent group that met. It's a season leading up to Easter.
Year?
Yes, you may. Thank you, please. Yes. Where we just spent time reflecting on. We talk about preparing our hearts for Easter, but we kind of reflect around this question: what needs to die so that something new can be born? That's the question over and over, and it's intentionally kind of a quiet and slow season. We practice letting go of something. Obviously, the popular way to do Lent is like, oh, I'm not going to eat chocolate for this season, or like some kind of I'm going to make my life. I'm going to be a little more miserable in some way. And that's not really the point.
No.
At least what I try to help keep the focus on is that we are slowing down. We are doing practices that help us to focus and help us to listen during that season. And pay attention, give space to whatever comes up, whatever questions whatever's bubbling up, we just try to make space for it, because our lives don't do that very well.
Yeah.
We do really well at just fixing, solving, shoving it down. We just don't make space for it. Mm-mm. So it's this intentional season of stillness, silence, and solitude, which I hope are our practices year round, but we try to make extra space for those practices. And my gosh, how uncomfortable the stuff that comes up. Yeah. In stillness, silence, and solitude. We've all mentioned Enneagram, right, a little bit, and there are specific. If you pay attention to your Enneagram type, there are each Enneagram type is between stillness, silence, and solitude. There's one that fits each of the types even more strategically, right? Like each one of us probably needs one of those three practices even more than the other. So you can look that up. Look up what your Enneagram type, which one it needs even
guess,
more.
But
I could guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's probably the one that you want to do the least, right? Yeah. But that's the thing that is an invitation. It's a door to, honestly, just to great discomfort, right? And we're building muscle in the Lent season for sitting with discomfort, sitting with death, and certainly not just funeral death, but what in our lives do we need to let die so that something new can be born? I think that's a huge part of grief that we haven't even hit on yet, is usually when things are dying. Yeah. It's a painful process. Death is, there's going to be natural pain in that. But I believe that death is never for the sake of death. Death is always making space for new life. Yeah. If you look at creation, if you look at nature around us, that there is a beautiful connection between death and decomposition, making space for truly sustaining new life. If there was no death, we would not have...
We would never have life. Yeah.
We wouldn't. So there is something connected as we let things die, as we let chapters close, as we learn to say no to things in our life. We're actually making space for new things to be born, for new things to spring up. So that's what we lean into in certain seasons. We do it in Lent, but hopefully it's a year-round thing where we learn, what do we need to let go of, not just for, we're not masochists, right? But what do we need to let go of to make space for new things in our life, to new chapters to start, new relationships to form. As long as we're white-knuckling things, we're just not opening ourselves to new opportunities. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's so good.
It's at least a helpful way of looking at grief for me, of what we're making space for.
It's a valuable reminder, because I think in perspective of what I have been through and what I've seen is when I do let go of something better replaced it. Or the relationship that I was grieving, the version of it that I wanted, when I accepted it for what it was, I learned to see all of its beauty, and there were things that came out of it when I allowed it to be as it was, when I let go of what I wanted, and that it's so true. And in this particular iteration of my life, going through this thing that I was dealing with, when I saw that this relationship wasn't going to give me the same energy I was giving it, I gave myself permission to say, I'm not going to close this door on this person. I love them and it's going to be what it is, but I'm going to take all this energy that I was spending on them and put it into people that I know will give back. It's not going to be everything that I would do and all that I would want, because I need to do that for myself, going back to what you were saying. But it will be people who are better at reciprocating to a level of what I need that are here. And I literally just pivoted. And in that one day when I allowed myself to cry and I had my time and I just gave myself permission, I immediately reached out to other people, and so much life in this area has begun to bloom because I allowed this other thing to die. Yeah. And it's scary to be if I let this go, nothing may ever come of it. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that other great things cannot be in this section of my heart or in my life that can meet those needs. And then I can give this person permission to just be who they are and love them without expectations or conditions or whatever. And then it also closed the cycle, and it healed that part of my heart. So you're right, and that is a very, very good reminder.
And on a really practical note, we're talking about closing the cycle. I am hearing, I feel like gratitude is a piece of closing the cycle. And I don't mean that in a toxic gratitude kind of way, but sometimes I feel like when we're really stuck in a chapter that needs to close or a relationship that we need to let go, a lot of that energy that we're stuck in it and we're fighting against it. If we can practice, like, what can we be thankful for? Like, what did that relationship give me? Even if it was just like, you made me more resilient, or you made me, I don't know. We can get creative on whatever that was, right? But if we can give gratitude for the thing, sometimes that can like unlock. It feels like a practical step in letting it go, letting it be what it is, naming where there's been goodness there, and that can help us to close or complete that loop. I don't know. That feels like I like to know what's my next step. I don't know. I feel like gratitude is something practical that we can do to lean into that.
That's so good.
That healing.
Yeah. And like leaning into that gratitude, it's one of those things when you feel the pain, we need that counter. And so that's where the gratitude comes in. Yeah. Right? Like, it's not, the whole relationship wasn't bad. You got good things from it. Yeah. Awareness, resilience, whatever, right?
Yes.
Whatever
we want to stronger.
Right?
Yes,
so even allowing humor to be part of that healing process, it's the both and. Like, I'm really glad I don't have to live with their potential. Right. And I learned a lot.
I learned a lot.
Right? It's the both and. Instead of like going into the depths of despair and staying there, because then you're going to find something and then try to go way up here and feel good, and then you'll do these spikes and plummets instead of, this is the extent of the grief and here's the extent of the gratitude. And having that balance
is so good.
Helps us maintain that level of resilience, of awareness and presence in our body where we don't have to separate.
I'm hearing it's becoming better at naming what is real. Right? And sometimes maybe even we are better at naming the bad real stuff, or at least we start there.
Absolutely.
But like there's something to like, but can you also name the real that was good? Like, there's a reason that I was in that relationship that long. There's a reason I missed that person. There's a reason that I wanted that job. There's a reason that I wanted, being able to name the positive sides of it too, just is more.
It's full circle.
It's the full circle of being able to name reality.
It's so good.
It's not avoiding and it's not denial. It is a recognition of the both and.
Both and, yes.
And when we can't do the both and, that's where we get stuck.
We start kicking against. We get really stuck and prickly. That's a word you taught me. That's where we start to get prickly, when we can't do the both and. We get prickly.
We do.
That was so good. Okay, so in your experiences, what actually helps people move through grief in a healthy way, not avoid it and not rush it, but truly process and integrate it?
Richard Rohr says, you can't heal what you can't name. Right. So just in whatever way, I mean, there are 1,000 different ways to give language, to name silently, rituals, maybe you even have examples of things that you've seen people have success with. But the idea behind it for me is we've got to be able to name, acknowledge the reality of what we're experiencing.
Absolutely. And yes, all of those things, rituals, time, space, but ultimately, we actually have to be present with ourselves long enough to be able to name what's going on. And I don't want to jump ahead, but our society doesn't create time and space for us to just be. Right? And without us learning to be, we're going to get hung up quite often because it's not going anywhere until we give it time and space. And so if I'm going to wait 12 years, all these things are going to come up and we have no idea why. Right? And so it's sitting in it. Like even this morning, I just woke up very sad. Like we have a lot of things going on, and Sam just left for Chicago, and I'm driving, well, he's driving, and I'm just like crying, and I'm just like, I'm okay. I'm just really sad today. And you've done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, good to know. And so I just cried.
Yeah.
He got out, gave him a hug, kiss goodbye. He got in the van, cried to work, then go. And then I'm fine.
And it's okay.
It's okay. It's that time and space. I didn't have music on. I didn't listen to a podcast. I didn't have a book. It's just like, let me just be with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had silence and solitude.
I had silence and solitude.
Yeah, I was just about to say, going back to that silence, stillness, and solitude. Yeah. What would you say, out of curiosity, for men? Because I feel like women, most of the time, well, I mean, I don't want to say traditionally, but some women are not like this. But a lot of women I speak to, they're like, I have no problem crying. Like me, I could cry. Like I just think about it in the tears. Well,
right, yeah.
But a lot of men are not like that. As each generation kind of comes around, there's a lot of unlearning and relearning that we're doing, and I think it's really good. There's a lot of talks about mental health right now, and so not every guy may be like this, but I know for a lot of men I know, that idea of like, I'm just going to be with me, they're like, why? No, I'm good. I don't need to do that.
It hasn't served them well.
Yeah.
Like, it hasn't served them to be with them.
Yeah.
So, of course, that's not going to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And so it is, so when I work with men, like a lot of times I'm like, okay, where do you notice that in your body? They're like, I feel nothing. I was like, great. How do you know? How do you know you feel nothing?
Yeah.
Right? And it's just these little things. I was like, are you comfortable in that chair? They're like, yeah. I was like, how do you know? Well, because I sat down. I was like, could you get more comfortable? Right? Like, just asking those little things, because we often are like, well, women are repressed or whatever, and now we're finding our voice and we're taking up space. But us taking up space should not diminish them.
Exactly.
Right? Because the more space I take up, it actually creates more space for everybody else. Yeah. And as soon as me taking up space starts diminishing one of you or them, I have just flipped the coin, and it is the same dysfunctional, toxic environment. So if me taking up space diminishes my husband, then I've got it wrong.
Yeah. That's
and
good.
So it is allowing me to figure out, what does it look like for me to have space, and being willing to talk about it when it's uncomfortable for both of us, and he can be like, oh. Yeah. And giving him time and space to actually notice, oh yeah, I do have feelings about these things. Oh yeah, I don't have to white knuckle things. I don't have to just continue to succeed to be worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's what do they need? I'm perfectly fine crying. Like, that's not an issue. I can do that now.
Yeah.
But that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
And so it is recognizing some guys are not going to want to sit and cry. Yeah. That's off-putting. Great. What would feel good to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, do you need to sit in your car and yell? Mm-hmm. As long as you're not hurting you or anybody else, get it out.
Yeah.
You get to be frustrated. You get to be angry, because they're also taught not to be too angry. Mm-hmm. Like, men are allowed to be angry to a degree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But how do you actually allow that anger to be productive? Because anger is a sign that there's an injustice. Something's not right. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's a mask for them because they feel sad or frustrated or hurt or disappointed, or the potential wasn't there.
In your experience, so for men, and this is because I've been in therapy recently and I'm learning so much, and it's great. Everyone should be in therapy. We're learning a lot about primary and secondary emotions, which for me, I jump right to the primary. I'm like, no, I'm sad, I'm disappointed. But that's taken a lot of practice as somebody who was an eldest daughter, and then I was in therapy for years. But a lot of guys that I know, they jump to the secondary. So that's going to be like the anger, the frustration, the stuff that is more easily manifested. But the hurt, the embarrassment, the sadness, that's something that maybe a lot of them are not either even going to be able to name, because they don't realize that's what they feel, or they don't want to name it. So in tying this to grief, like in your experience, and maybe you can give tips, like how for men like if they don't necessarily feel something that's an automatic, like I know what that is, how do they know if they are needing to get something out, if they're needing that this is an emotion they need to name, if this is grief, like how do they know? Do you have any insight to offer to anybody who's listening who might be a man that is struggling with that?
So let's hypothetically say someone lost somebody. Okay. And they're not criers, but they feel a little angsty and they're a little snippy and they're short with everyone around them, or they just can't sit still, right? Mm-hmm. There's just this nervous energy, right? So it's being willing to acknowledge what is actually happening, whether I have the words, content, or context. My nervous system and body can still process it. I just have to give it time and space. So, like, there's a lot of us, especially, I know we're talking about men, but across the board, epigenetics or pre-verbal traumas or wounds, we're not going to have the language. We just feel something familiar or unsafe or whatever. And our body's communicating. And so it is being willing to be present enough with our bodies to actually let the angstiness, the antsiness, the like, I just need to squeeze something, right?
Yeah.
All of those things.
Or I just need to pick up my phone. I'm going to watch
well,
memes.
if I just want to do that, then the question is, okay, where are you not wanting to be present? Right? The angstiness, the antsy, the like gripping your hands, like your body is trying to discharge energy, right? Wow. Discharge an emotion. And so that's how I get them to start noticing. Like, oh yeah. And then notice, oh, I just got flushed. Oh, great notice. And it's just those little bits of noticing. Whether you have the words for the emotion, I know what my body's saying.
Yeah. Just taking a beat long enough. Just to be like, oh, I just don't want to be in this room right now. I'm uncomfortable. Even if it's just that little bit.
And then leave the room. And give yourself permission to leave that room. And you don't have to have all the reasons why. Like, for us, we probably had to because we had the logic. I had to justify the feelings that I had, so now I can tell you
Yes,
why.
I need to explain.
Yep. So, and it's also realizing we can just dip our toes in. Oh, I acknowledged it. Okay, I don't want to deal with it right now. No problem. It's like giving that time and space for our children. Hey, later we can scream and wail, but right now is not the time. Same thing for us. Oh, I feel you. Right? And a car ride to the airport and back is like 30 minutes to where we are now. In Redding. You know, so that's a perfect cry time.
That's great.
Right? So men, women alike, be present enough with your body to notice what's happening. Whether your feet are cold, your fingers are clammy. Like, all of these are just signals. And just ask yourself, what do I want to do with it? And that's all.
Wow. And can I ask, I have had this experience in the last couple, so I lost my mom several years ago, and the grief that I've processed through that, I've had a lot of, like, we've had discussions around just unmet expectations and grief of dreams that haven't been realized in the way that I thought they would. And I have noticed, I've had, so as a mom with little kids, I do not get to work out as often as I would like to. But I noticed something happening. There was a time not long ago where I went to a yoga class and I could not stop crying through my yoga class. And I love my Peloton that's in my garage, and I will get so emotional when I'm on the Peloton. And this was something that I did not have grade for, but I have a feeling that you do, and you're not surprised at all by what I'm saying. Can you, as someone who is comfortable crying, as someone who is comfortable, just wouldn't bother me at all to be on a car ride and to bawl my eyes out with a good song on or whatever. But it has felt surprising for the way that those emotions have worked their way through me when I am having, I'll say, an embodied experience, when I'm doing something with my body. What's that about? And is that something that we can use as a tool. Can you say?
It's absolutely a tool, because it is, you are slowing down enough to experience something with yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. And like, there are couples that will start crying during sex, but it is that moment where we live such busy lives that we don't create time and space for us to actually feel what's going on.
Yeah.
And once we start moving our bodies, there's a lot of emotions that are happening, and tears are a release. It kind of cleanses the soul. Okay. And they will talk to us if we let them.
Yeah.
This morning I didn't have time or space to be like, what are you trying to tell me? Yeah. But I will ask clients, if your tears could talk, what would they tell me?
Wow.
Yeah. Right? Dang. It's not what does your brain say, what does the logic say? If your tears could speak, what would they tell me? Just that movement and being present and doing something that you know helps your body is you've slowed down enough, and it believes it can release it.
Okay.
And there's a lot more to it, but.
So with that, being strategic, like if I know that I've been in my head about something, you know, that's where going on a walk.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like that's not, that really is connected. That's really
very,
is,
very connected. Yeah.
It's not just the time. It's
because
not just
it's
the quiet.
it's also you are moving both sides of the body. It is bilateral now.
Okay.
Right? And so you are integrating all of these things and holding space for whatever's coming, and you're actually focused on something else, which gives space for this thing to settle.
Okay. It's actually really good to hear that. I figured I wasn't the only one going through that, but those moments have surprised me. They feel like they've come in, honestly, they've come in the back door, which is probably because I have the front door so well girded. You know, I'm just so constant vigilance. I don't have time to grieve. I don't have time to process all of that. So then it is actually just miraculous how our bodies it's gonna
talk. It will talk.
We are resilient in that way, I guess, that we insist on, we insist on our own healing in some ways.
We will not let ourselves be forgotten.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Wow.
Our bodies, we will not let ourselves be forgotten.
Wow.
Ooh.
That was just on the spot.
Just a casual little mic drop.
That's beautiful, though. Yeah. We won't let ourselves be forgotten.
Last question. If people learned how to properly grieve endings, not just death, but change, identity shifts, emotional loss, how different do you think their relationships, mental health, and physical health would look?
Yeah, it's pretty huge. But it takes so much intentionality.
Yeah.
Like, to allow yourself to name what's going on, to name what you're grieving, to name what you wished or you had expected, like, that is heavy. And so to be able to acknowledge it and not lose hope is a really big deal. Because it's easier to be like, okay, fine, I'll wash my hands of that and not lose hope, right? Because we don't get to change other people. We don't get to change our spouses. And we were drawn to whoever it was, friends, spouse, for a reason. And then we create this idea of what it could be, and they never agreed to it.
Yeah.
And then we're disappointed. And then we have to realize and reconcile the fact that I've built my life on a story that was never real. And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Like, all my beliefs, my trust, all of this was on something that I created in my mind. Yeah. And that's an ego hit.
Yeah.
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 Right? And so not only am I grieving the loss of this idea, like, I am, like, completely humbled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now how do I rebuild me in the midst of a broken heart and all of these things and still not lose hope for life?
Yeah.
And going after it. And it's very possible.
Yeah.
but it's being able to call it what it is. Mm-hmm. And the practical side would be baby steps.
Yeah.
Don't do it all at once. Don't jump in the deep end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because then you will go back to white knuckling. You will go back to, I'm going to find someone and I will control them. And I'm going to buckle down, hunker down even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's pick one friend. Can I be big with you? Wow. One person say, can I just be super messy?
With you saying that where we operate out of these contracts that nobody signed. And I can think, like my Lenten prayer of what needs to die so something new can be born. What do I need to acknowledge was never even alive?
That's really
so
good.
that something new can be born, right?
Yeah,
like sometimes
really
it's not
good.
even just what needs to die. It's like, what do I need to realize was never
A thing.
never even real?
Yeah.
That was just something that I was giving myself to that wasn't even nobody else, nobody co-signed on. That was just in my man, that feels heavy, But what an invitation, right? When we can live lighter, when we can live in that reality, and we can actually pursue relationships that are co-signed, that we can pursue connections that are I don't want to say that are real,
that allow for each other's humanity.
Yeah.
And that I think is a hard thing. We try to diminish our humanity and everyone else's.
Yeah.
We expect I will show up like this for you and you show up like this for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not real. It's
not real.
It's not humanity.
Yeah.
And so when you get rid of that and say, okay, I get to be human and you, and we're going to make messes.
Yeah.
Are you willing to engage?
Yeah. And there is a connection between how much we allow other people to be human with how comfortable we are being human ourselves, right?
Oh,
if I'm not
absolutely.
comfortable being messy, then I typically don't let other people be messy. But the more comfortable I am with my, with getting it wrong, with trying, just owning my stuff, there seems to be a connection with my ability to let other people be messy as well.
Because you're taking up space, which then creates space for them.
Yeah.
So good. I say on the podcast often about how to the level that we love ourselves is a level that we love others.
Yeah.
Because if I love myself with conditions, I'm going to do that for other people. Because that's the only kind of love I know.
Yeah.
But it's so true about for everything that you guys are saying is making me think about we have to allow ourselves to believe that we are worth the messy kind of love because it's real. Yeah. But if we only know a fake kind of love, a counterfeit kind of love, because we put stipulations on ourselves, we put conditions on ourselves because of what we learn from our parents and how we grow up in the environments that we're in. If we believe that that's all we're ever worthy of, we'll do that for other people, but it's not real. You're right. And then in this point where we're grieving the potential or the expectations or whatever, being able to tell ourselves there is something real for me on the other side of this if I will give myself permission to go and find it. And to let it be what it is because that's what I'm worthy of. I'm worthy of somebody's full authenticity, loving me and all their mess, and allowing me to take up space, even though I've never given myself permission in the past to take up space, or I've never given somebody else permission to take up space in my life. It goes back to that, our worldview is formed by how we see ourselves. And if we can love that person first, really. Yeah. We can, out of the overflow, allow other people to love us well and love others well. And it's so true. And I talk a lot about self-worth, a lot. And it's so weird because, coming from a religious background, that is not talked about often. It's, it's always, everything that I learned, I was a pastor's kid growing up all my life. Everything was about other people. So I never took any time to learn anything about myself. I never even knew really what my favorite color was. It's that pathetic because everything was just about service to others, love for others, check on other people. And it bled into all facets of my life, being an oldest child, and then into my marriage. But when I stopped long enough to not fully reject it, but to just say, you know what, I do think people are worth it, but there's something in me that has gone so long neglected that there's this massive need and this wound where I'm chasing other people for affection because that's all I've known is give and pour out, and then they'll give back. But they don't. It was so amazing to be able to take a second and heal that part of me. So then I can show up for people, just like you said, and be like, this is who I am, and we created this really funny saying when I was growing up in Houston, like, take me as I am or watch me as I leave,
Right.
And it's fine. It's like, if I am not your cup of tea, that's all right with me.
Yes.
And this is such a valuable conversation, but it has healed so much of my heart, and it has allowed me to love other people well and accept the level of love that they can give me, and love that and see it and value it as it is, not as I want it to be or as I would do it within my stipulation. So this conversation has been really cathartic and very healing and so good. Yeah. I cannot thank you both enough for taking the time out of your schedules and your lives. And at the time of this recording, yesterday was Mother's Day. So you guys both have families and you have lives, and you could be home, but you chose to be here with me. Thank you both so much. I want to do you the best honor that I can while we're recording and allow you to tell my listeners where they can find you, what you're doing. Feel free to plug all of your social media. So Rebekah, we'll start with you. Tell me about all the things that you're doing, where we can find you online.
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube and probably Facebook. I'm not great on social media. RJL Coaching, and then I have a website, rjlcoaching.com. And yeah, I work with couples, individuals, or anyone that wants to connect with themselves or their sexuality and just becoming fully human. And I am a somatic experiencing practitioner, which has changed my life.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Do you do any work online, like coaching online?
Yes. I would say the majority of my clients are online. I do international and all over the U.S. and Canada and South America. So
Fabulous.
Yeah, pretty much anyone with internet, we can work.
Amazing. All right, Bryn, tell me all the things. Where can people find you?
I wear so many hats. You can find me with my funeral director, water cremation work, Aquaterra, water cremation. We're on Instagram. Choose Aquaterra.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Is that right? Again, I'm also not great. And then
that's why we have
my faith stuff is shakenandstirred.faith. And on Instagram, and anyway, so I'm doing a lot of things. We're just staying busy, but
doing great things.
Yeah,
amazing things.
And we're thankful for you, Cicily. Thank you
yes.
for making space. Thank you for making these conversations accessible and easy. And I just feel like you are writing permission slip after permission slip for people, just letting them be exactly who they're meant to be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for having us.
much.